Hello, everybody. I am Angie Callen, and this, as you know, is No More Mondays, your favorite podcast on believing that you can have a thriving career, business, and an amazing life on your terms. And what I do is bring you guests who prove that's possible and who share awesome insights to help you live and work more authentically. It has already been a good time here in the green room, and I am excited about today's conversation because you all know I'm a sucker to talk to anybody who wants to chat about freedom and community and doing things differently. So when I came across Vincent Pugliese, founder of Total Life Freedom and creator of the Unconference, and a guy who basically helps entrepreneurs build real connection through membership, I knew we'd have a lot to talk about. The fact that we're also both East Coast Italians with more opinions and words to say about those opinions than most people made us fast friends. I also hope you can keep up because this will not be a slow-paced conversation. Vincent isn't just teaching business owners how to monetize communities. He's really challenging all of us to rethink how we design our lives, how we connect with people, and why traditional scripts are a thing of the past if you want real freedom. Know why I like this guy? So if you're tired of playing by somebody else's rules, keeping with societal norms, or you're wondering what it might look like to build life around meaningful work and meaningful relationships, this is a conversation you want to stick around for. Vincent Pugliese, welcome to No More Mondays.
Excited to be here, and I love the intro and the conversation because this is something I could talk about for hours. So I'm excited for this.
Vincent and I have talked about these things for hours.
Yeah.
Our worlds collided through various communities that we're both part of, and it was so fun. I got to hang out with Vincent in real life just a few weeks ago at an event hosted by Justin Shank, which might be a familiar name to those of you who listen to this podcast regularly. And so if that isn't a testament to the topic that we're going to talk about the importance of relationships and communities, I don't know what is. But I'll try to keep our two just in the echo chamber together, standing on the soapbox, shouting into the void with some sort of guardrails around it. Although what fun is that, right? So I want to start with freedom. You talk about Total Life Freedom. It's the brand you've built. I want to know what freedom really has meant to you beyond money and time.
The time factor is the most important for me. Like money is necessary, right? And it's the thing that allows you to buy back your time. But for us, it was constantly for the period of time of having our kids. We have three boys, 19, 17, and 13. And our goal was always to how do we spend time with them? How do we just, and you mind if we just pause for a second? Like the echo is so unbelievable.
So bad.
That
okay.
I'm just hearing myself. Thanks for having me. I am super excited for this conversation to be here.
I always love hanging out with you, especially when we get to talk about freedom. So, Member Freedom, your business, is really rooted around this idea of you wanting to create membership freedom. I'm going to get it right one of these times. Membership freedom.
That's it.
Is the pathway that you've leveraged to kind of create this lifestyle for yourself. And I want to understand from your perspective, what does freedom mean to you?
Freedom is for us. I mean, it's different for everyone, obviously, but for us, it was, we have three boys and we've homeschooled them almost their entire life. Like Andrew was in third grade. He's now 19 when we first started. And for us, it was time. It was, how do we build a business that gives us the life that we want? And I, unfortunately experienced my dad had his own business and my mom worked for the government and had a government job. And I got to see both sides of it. And my dad had a situation when I was 15 where his business partner just left town with all the money. In 1985, just emptied the bank accounts, $135,000, 15 years old, getting ready, to go to college eventually, maybe whatever it is. And our life got completely had the rug pulled out from underneath us where, we're looking at losing the house. I thought my parents were going to get divorced. There was stress and arguing, and it wasn't anything they really did wrong. They didn't. It just, we watched this happen. And so as I met Elizabeth, we started talking about having a family. to begin with, it was, and we both had full-time jobs as photographers for a newspaper. It was really about when we build this, we're going to build this around the life that we want. So it wasn't about how do we maximize revenue. It wasn't about ROI and all these things that they'll talk about. It's freedom was the key. And then when we did that, and then we started having a family and then started homeschooling, it's like, we want to be able to travel. We want to be able to go to the park on a Wednesday afternoon. We want to not be tied down to an office. We want to be able to be gone for 4 months. So everything we've built has been built with the idea of freedom first, and then we'll build out everything from there. So that's always been, the last 2 decades has been just such a important part for us.
And I think it's so interesting on what created that perspective for you, because for me, it was finally arriving at this homeostasis is maybe a good word to put it. I'm trying to eliminate the term work-life balance, but I arrived at this point of work and life being more integrated, and having designed that for myself. And it kind of, I don't want to say it was an accident, but I sought out access to things I wanted to do. I chose life and quality of life kind of first, and then the career in a way fell into place. And there's a certain level of risk there. But I would love for you to know in all the years that you've been living this life and helping others do it, why do you think people chase success, but they forget to define it for themselves?
That's a fantastic question. You can start an entire event off with that question and then let everybody talk about it from there. Because when you see, for instance, you'll see somebody going on a certain path, and you know what they want, but then they're following a certain path. And my job is to be like, why are you going down that road? And then they'll say, well, my coach told me to do so. Or I'm following this person and they built $1 billion business and they have staff and they have all these things. And like, is that what you want? And they're like, no, I kind of want to just live life on my terms. Like, well, you're driving down the wrong road, following the wrong people.
You haven't figured out your terms.
Yes. So the problem is they're successful and they seem easy to follow because they're not successful in the life that you want. Like, we don't want employees. We don't want a staff. We want a lean, mean solopreneur machine. I guess the best way to say, like, that's what we want.
Amen.
I don't want to deal with it. And we've been down all those roads, and I'll talk to people. I've been to masterminds I've been the only solopreneur, but most solopreneur with multiple levels of income streams, and like the whole thing. And honestly, Angie, it's like, I'm in a room with 12 other people, and all 12 of them, their main problem is their employees, their staff, the turnover, the all these different things. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, man, like, your life seems so stressful compared to what we deal with. Now we all have it, but they went down a path of, I'm going to grow this giant. I'm going to grow the team. And all these people think that is the only way to do it. And I want to show that there's a path. As my friend Ken Julian says, keep it small and keep it all. And it's not that it's small, but it's basically like, we don't deal with all these problems that most people deal with. We control, I'm kind of a control freak. I could admit that. And I'm never really.
But you've designed an ecosystem that kind of supports it / enables it / doesn't project it on people who would be miserable because of the control freak. Yeah. It's the smart decision making.
And what I do is I attract people that want that. And then maybe they might not even know they want it. They're going down this other path, and I'll show them this path. And they go, oh, wait a second. I don't need all those things that everybody says I need, and you don't, depending on what you're building. So for us, we wanted to build something that was that we controlled our time, we controlled the income, we controlled the decisions we can make, and we build exactly the work that we want to do when we want to do it. Yeah. And so it's always been based around that. And like you mentioned earlier, and then decide the life that you want and then build the business around that life.
And I've mentioned this story before, so it'll be new to Vincent though, so y'all can just bear with me. I started getting the inkling of the fact that people don't make that choice when I made the decision to move from the East Coast to Colorado because I had gotten bit by the ski bug and I wanted to be in close proximity to the thing I loved. I know that is lost on you, the Florida man, who is cold if it is 60 degrees and the light breeze. Yeah. However, I remember people kept saying to me like, oh, you're living my dream. And I was just sitting there going, well, you could do this too, but we choose not to, or we think we can't choose to make these kinds of decisions. And I think society has placed on us the expectation that we don't have as much agency or control over how we live our lives and the type of career that's going to support that. And so we just take whatever's handed to us in the 4-letter F word, fine.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't help that our running head start at all this is 12 years in school where you're being told what to do every second.
Where you're super structured. Yeah.
And you walk out of your house and you go to a bus that picks you up at the same time that you don't have any control over, that you can't say, I don't want to go today. So, and then the bus comes home when they tell you to come home. And then during the day, you go to a class and they tell you what to do and when to sit still. And when, I mean, for all of us, it's like, that was torture for me. That was absolute torture for me. And then to learn things that I don't want to learn, like you talk about beating somebody into submission. And I think the only people that make it out are ones that are so defiant that even when they come out of it, they never succumbed to that system. Like I just wanted to get out, just get me out of this building. And I don't know. I remember clearly I was such a terrible student in high school. So terrible that, for instance, I went to my guidance counselor at 16 years old. And she's in this dark, dingy room with one of those orange.
They always were in a dark, dingy room with no windows.
No windows. And it's her and the guy behind her who I never saw his face. His back was always to me. No personality. And that orange, university light, right, that'll be like in a room, right? And she said, so what do you want to do? She's asking about my career. I'm 16 years old and a complete loser, right? At that point. And she said, what do you want to do? And I said, I have no idea. All I know is that I don't want to wear a tie every day like that guy. That's what I said to her. And she said, no, I'm being serious. And I said, no, I'm being serious. And I raised my voice. I was like, no, I don't want to do this right here. But that's what she's guiding me towards doing. That's going to be my career. And she kicked me out of her office. This is my guidance counselor. She said, get out. She was so mad at me. And I walked out of there and I didn't feel bad about it. Like,
you don't fit the mold. I can't guide you.
I can't and not only that, but I'll be mad at you for thinking that way. And then my senior year, I remember a friend of mine who was going to college because I grew up on Long Island and everybody was going to, all the great schools, and I barely could even get into Nassau Community College. And a friend of mine said, what are you going to do? He was worried about me. And I said to him, I'll never forget this. And I'm not sure why I was so confident because I had no reason to be confident. But I said, I have no idea, but I'm going to figure something out. And I said it kind of with a smile. And he looked at me like, what are you talking? And all I remember thinking was just get me out of that door. Because I knew when I would talk to adults, I would have great conversations, right? We would go back and forth about things. I'd make them laugh, this and that. And we would, and I'm like, I didn't fit at all any of the system. And I think the people, no offense to anybody, but I think if you fit that system and you're good at going along with the rules, it makes it really hard to be an entrepreneur. Because even at that point, you're going to be like, well, what's the next step? Well, tell me the next thing I should do. And every bit of it is figuring out the next step and not knowing and taking a chance on something and doing an event that you don't know if it's going to fail or not needing a blueprint. Like you have to go with your intuition. And when you're constantly told what to do for 12 to 16 years, they're the most difficult people for me to work with because they constantly want approval to do the next thing. And then the people that are doing it don't ask for approval. They might ask for guidance along the way, right? And they're collaborating with different, but they're not asking for approval for the next step. I never did. And it's why I failed a lot. And I have a saying that bad choices make great stories. All my best stories.
Oh, yes, they do. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, Phoenix Rising, Overcomer are very common story tropes for a reason. Yeah. Smooth sailing, not a story trope.
No. And as long as it's not fatal, it's good. You're gonna learn something.
You're always going to learn. You're never going to just fail.
But so many people act like they're gonna live to their 800s. And I'm like, what are you waiting for? Like, what do you wait? Like, well, just not lined up yet. And one of this. And I understand planning and I understand market research and all that stuff. But my goodness, like, how long do you think you're going to live that you're going to take years and decades to make a decision?
Yeah. There comes a point in time, and this is funny. We're going to have a recurring theme 2 weeks back to back. Last week's episode was David Young, and he is the opposite of you and took the I have to be in a structured approach until he was a self-admittedly miserable and depressed and realized he needed to make a change. And the biggest thing he said to me is you can analyze, you can gather information all you want, but at some point the rubber's got to meet the road and you've got to start taking action. And I think what's interesting about your story is the rub and the friction between the traditional structure of school that most of us figure out how to fit into is what kind of created this idea of like, I'm going to figure it out and I'll just take some action and I'll kind of tumbleweed my way into something. And it worked.
It did. It's funny because I always joke around like I'm kind of like Mr. Magoo. That's like my role model without realizing it. He was kind of clueless and he was kind of blind, like in terms of vision far ahead, but he always saw right in front of him and he always kept moving. And Mr. Magoo then wound up falling down a lot, but he always fell into the right spot. If you pay, I remember even as a kid watching it, he always wound up in a good spot. And then it's funny because then you wind up doing that and you wind up teaching it. I had one of my clients, and I mentioned about Mr. Magoo, and he goes, "You're kind of like a blend between Mr. Magoo and Mr. Miyagi." And I'm like, that's kind of a cool blend. Like, I'll take that.
I want to come up with a really good combination of those two words, and it just is not at the top of my tongue. Mr. Mugabe.
Mugabe, I don't know.
Mugabe?
but in some way, it is like you learn so much by making the mistakes and by doing things that you can then teach people through almost all these scenarios that not only you've gone through, but you worked with other people through. Mm-hmm. And a lot of it's just this mental game that people delay and procrastinate and look for perfection. And it just stops people from living the life they want.
It does not serve you. And I love that the failure piece came up here because there is a difference between, I'm going to say, recklessness and taking risks, but also evaluating the worst case scenario that could likely come out of this, right? So in all of the tumbleweed Mugumi or whatever we're going to call you, you're still here. You still have 3 healthy children, a happy marriage, and a great business, and a whole lot of shit up until this point. You survived. And I think that we are so good at catastrophizing things in our head that we just take that at face value instead of saying, let's see what I can gain from this. But also, what's the likelihood that this giant, I'm going to get attacked by a saber-toothed tiger in my cave at night catastrophe is really likely to happen. And if you can work through that, you can actually start to take the actions that we like to paralysis analysis ourselves out of.
Yeah. What's the worst that question, what's the worst that's going to happen? Honestly, for most people, I think it's public embarrassment. I don't think it's financial ruin. We can all get jobs to pay the bills, right? Yeah. We can all cut our lifestyle down to reduce some of the expenses. I think we make it out to be money, but I think we're afraid of other people seeing us fail.
It is so money is always a symptom, is almost always a symptom, not the cause. And basic, fundamental, raw human fear that is rooted in almost all of us is fear of lack of acceptance. And there 100%. It is that is exactly what keeps us small.
It's why we don't put ourselves out there. It's why we don't create content. It's why we don't reach out to people. It's why we don't make offers. It's why we don't do any of this stuff because what's my mother-in-law going to think? Right? What's what are they going to think? And I think the sooner you get pissed off about that and you don't worry about it, and I remember when we started our first business 20 years ago, my mother-in-law was frightened. She was frightened because Elizabeth was great at school, right? And she was on a path with a career. And then she meets me, who she wasn't thrilled about, right? Because I'm just a loud New Yorker that's not fitting into the mold of what she wants in her life. And then we had these jobs together, and then we decided to start our own business. And we're going to quit our jobs because the business was going good. And she freaked out. Like, what are you going to do for health insurance? I was like, you can buy it. Now, she didn't know that because that
is like the number one thing people bring. Oh, the health insurance. Oh, good Lord.
I'm going to buy it. They didn't know you can buy it because when you come from an employee mindset, you are basically not told, but you're pretty much let to believe like you need us for health insurance, not realizing you could just go buy it. If you make enough money, you just go buy it. And then I'll never forget. And sometimes we need to use, different forms of motivation. I'm a sports fan. I like bulletin board material. I like when people don't believe in me. I enjoy that. And I heard from the other room two people in her family say they'll find out. Basically, they tried a business and they failed, and they said,
and you were like, gauntlet down.
I heard it with my own ears, and I remember thinking, I know nothing about what I'm doing. I really don't. I know about the craft of what I'm doing, but I know nothing about building the business. And I said to myself, there's no way I'm going to fail. I remember the feeling outside the kitchen door, there's no way this will fail, because if this fails, they're right. If it fails, they're right. And so by failing, I'm proving I will do anything at this point to succeed. And we did. We stayed up late. We did everything we could. And that sometimes I think you need those motivations. You need those people that don't believe in you to power you forward.
So there's some parallels there. First, I grew up in a teacher's house. So the school component is a really interesting conversation because I was the opposite. Great student, loved school, top of the class, teacher's kid. And that's why I went to engineering school. But that's where things started unraveling, because it wasn't what I was meant to do and how I was wired. But it was that similar expectation of growing up with kind of like baby boomer parents that, okay, we've had one job, you're going to kind of have one job. And hi, mom, sorry to say, had the similar reaction when I decided to like leave engineering, because it was and entrepreneurship is not taught in schools. I think it's starting to a little bit, but it's such an unknown when you come from not even just the structure of employment, but the structure of structured employment, like school, or like government work. Right. And so it does buck the trend, and it does make you self-conscious to think, okay, these people who love me and care about me are concerned I'm making a wrong decision. But at some point you have to follow your intuition and do what you know is right for you. And it's all worked out, right? It wasn't without some sticky wickets in the middle, but it's all kind of, worked itself out. And you are in a more fulfilling place than had you chose otherwise.
Oh, I would have been miserable, as I think you might have been as well. And
I was.
And this is where people don't see the resentment that goes on in families over time. And I've heard the arguments of other people in their 40s and 50s, angry at their parents because they never got to do anything that they wanted to do. They were always
and that's the regret piece.
Yes.
Why wait until you're in your last half or third of life to start living?
Well,
and that's kind of how society has structured it. You can have life at 62 and a half.
Exactly. But just imagine also being 44 years old and following the path that you were guided on by your parents and your teachers, and realizing at 44 you hate what you do, even though you're great at it. But yet now you have a spouse and 3 kids that you're, financially responsible for. And you can't just easily flip a switch and start something new at that point. And some can and some have. You put the work in, but it's not easy those first couple of years, right?
Yeah.
And there's a resentment of, I hate what I'm doing. And the realization of, I don't need my parents financially anymore. Because you make decisions based on that when you're late, and this is going to piss off some parents, but you make decisions late teens, early 20s based on, well, they're paying for college, they're paying for my place. When you're no longer having that and you look back, there's anger. There's resentment that comes from like, I don't like the life that I have, even though it's successful. And it's, and I saw enough of that even at an early age. I'm like, I'd rather make not very much money and live the life that I wanted. But the crazy thing is, following the life that I wanted helped me make a lot of money.
Isn't it amazing how that happens? And a lot of times it's because you're using your purpose and your gifts in the way that you were meant to, versus shoving yourself into a box. And what is that? What's that book? The 5 regrets, 6 regrets, 7 regrets of the dying. I don't know.
Yeah.
They're probably adding up now.
Yeah.
But like, no one ever says I should have worked more. I should have made more money. That is never anything we regret. And you're in a position, you out there, to exercise agency and get yourself in a better place, whether you're 24, 34, 44, 54, or 74, right? And I think this is a good, because the family is part of community. And I want to talk a little bit about how community became such a central part of your version of freedom. I mean, now it's a whole platform for kind of what you're doing, but how did community, a real community, weave its way into this new reality for you?
very differently than you might have imagined. I wasn't a community guy. I'm very much a loner. I'm very much like, just leave me alone with my thoughts.
Which is just so bizarre, because when you hang out with this guy, loudmouth New York Italian, chiming in on everything, seems extroverted. So thinking of you as a loner makes no sense.
I've been labeled the interrupter before. It's happened.
Own it with pride.
Yeah. I mean, it's true. I'm gonna lie about it. It's true. But no, I like to be with my thoughts. I like to be with people that are close to me. I like to be alone. I don't mind being alone. I don't fear it at all. It's where I think most of my best ideas come from. I love people, but people really annoy me as well. They just really do. Like, I'm not a cocktail hour person. I am not a networking event person. I don't like the small talk. I could care less about it. I mean, I love in person. I love events, but I hate the small talk. What do you do?
I love conversation. I can't deal with small talk drivel.
And so much of it is that. So I'm like, okay, just get me out of here. Let me go home. Let me write something. Let me have a one-to-one conversation, right? But what I learned was over time, when I got away from a lot of that BS that I didn't like, I started really searching out people that I did want to connect with. And then it's actually, you talk about community, you think about a neighborhood, right? Think about a neighborhood that people complain about taxes, if we use this as an example. To me, it's not that bad of a thing. Taxes kind of helps your neighborhood stay clean, right? Regular, like, rules in some ways keeps the riffraff out, right? Like, you think about even like an HOA, and I can see all sides of it, but we live in an HOA now for the first time ever, and I kind of like it because there's not houses with 3 cars on, being lifted up and their tires being changed and lawns 6 feet high. Like, there are certain things that you got to keep up with.
Yeah.
And, I think the more responsible you are, the more you probably appreciate that. Right. But, when I was 20, I wouldn't appreciate that. I want to do whatever I want to do. But in terms of community, I don't think it's just random people in a group. I think the more you curate that community, the more standards there are for that community, the better the community is. And the more of a focus that community has of where are we going and how are we helping each other. So that's why it's different. Like, even with our membership, you can't just sign up. You can't just buy it. And I'm going to, trash segments of my family, but I'm like, I don't want my brother-in-law in, right? So if anybody can buy it, brother. What's that?
Sorry, bro.
But if anybody can buy it, that means anybody can buy it.
And there is a loss of control and potentially quality if curation isn't coming in.
Oh, not even potentially. It's a guarantee.
Yeah.
It's a guarantee because you can get the person that comes in and like their only purpose is to sell and to pitch to other people under the table. You can get people that come in and they go,
we all know that guy.
Yeah. Yeah. They're just negative all the time. They'll find the problems with everything. You can have all those people. When you have a boundary, I build stadiums, right? That's what we help. I was a sports photographer for 20 years, and I learned that they have the best business model ever. And that's my next book. But every stadium, from every level, top to bottom, there's security guards in between there. Yeah. You can't just hop the railing and go somewhere. You can't just do. Same thing with communities. Like, you can't just hop in here. So we have security, meaning boundaries. Like, hey, when you join, here are the rules of this. And I will kick you out because I don't need your payment. And I'm going to protect my community. And there's been times that we've had to do that. And the crazy thing is the response from within the community is thank you.
Appreciation. Yeah.
Because they see it. They're not dumb.
When it creates like a safer space for people to engage more
100%.
Without the extra noise. Hey, since you brought it up, by the way, I come from a little place that bleeds black and gold. So please tell everyone where you shot photography. Or who you shot photography for.
We lived in Pittsburgh for over 10 years, and I was a photographer, not the official, but I worked for different organizations, for the Steelers, for the Penguins. My terrible towel's right over there. I've been a Steeler fan my whole life.
Woohoo!
Pirates, I actually I think Pittsburgh misses me. I stopped shooting in 2018 for all the teams. I shot the Pirates when they actually broke their curse of 20 years of making the playoffs.
Of the longest playoff drought in any major league sports history. Yep.
I was at the game in Chicago where they won it. They tagged them out the plate and they won the game. I photographed that. I shot 2 Steelers Super Bowls. But here's the thing, and I shot the Penguins when they won the Cup in 2017. When I stopped shooting for them, I'll pin it on myself. None of them done jack squat since then.
You're the rabbit's foot, and you ran away.
Yeah.
Okay, so, all of my Pittsburgh family who's listening, you can blame Vincent on the recent playoff.
My wife would tell me I'm ridiculous whenever I say those things because I do have superstitions. She's like, it doesn't matter that your leg's up on the TV in the 9th inning. It's not going to matter. I'm like, no, it does. Don't interrupt me. Like, I got dumb superstitions.
I'm not going to try to prove you right and move it, so don't ask.
Exactly. A funny story that could completely go off topic. I'm a Mets fan. And in 2006, they made the National League Championship Series. It was Game 7, and they hadn't been to the World Series. Oh, I think they haven't won in 20-something years. So our son was 1 year old. Andrew was 1 year old, and I had a Mets shirt on him for the entire game. And they're tied up against the Cardinals. And Elizabeth goes to put him to bed. And I didn't think it because I'm so wrapped up in the game, which I don't get that wrapped up anymore like I did then. And she comes out and just casually, without even moving my head, I'm looking at the screen. I'm like, you didn't take his shirt off, did you? And she's like, well, of course. I put his pajamas. I'm like, you can't take the shirt off. I'm not joking, Angie. 2 seconds later, the Cardinals hit a 3-run homer in the 9th, a 2-run homer in the 9th. And I looked at her and she goes, do not blame me for this. And then they lost. They lost 3-1. We're eliminated. And I still bring it up.
And it is still your fault, Elizabeth.
It
is.
You took the shirt off.
You took the shirt off.
You don't take the shirt off at that point.
You don't take the shirt off.
Right?
I, fun fact, lived in Boston when they broke the curse of the Bambino in 2004, which 2004. Even though, I mean, I grew up a Pirates fan. You don't become a lifelong Pirates fan without loving the game of baseball. Please refer to aforementioned longest drought in Major League sports history. And so it was super fun to be part of that. Lots of superstitions around all of that kind of stuff. So I had to bring that up only because of the Pittsburgh connection. Mom and dad are huge Steelers fans, huge black and gold fans, and everybody's listening at home. So there you go. There's our one degree of separation from.
We could do a whole nother Pittsburgh. We could do a Pittsburgh sports conversation as well because I got a million stories from that. But
you have such. I mean, I am intentionally trying to keep some of the stories that we're gonna have to do a storytelling hour. Let's just drop a little nugget there and say there was an incident with Flava Flav and a tarantula. Moving on. Let's go back to this community kind of thing, because I love how you talk about how important it is. And I also love the idea of like the mental shift from networking, meaningless connections to real community and connection. And so I want to talk to people out there. If there is somebody who's in a solopreneur environment and feeling lonely, or even just in a professional journey and they feel isolated, what's one small thing they can do to start finding or building this kind of meaningful community around them?
That's a great question. I think it's finding first and then building later. I was so grateful, 10, 12 years ago, joining a couple of entrepreneurial communities that I knew nothing. I knew my space, and now I'm going into this whole new space, and I need to be around like-minded people. And the funny thing is, there's a mental game that goes on where people go, well, I don't really want to pay for friends. And I'm like, what a silly, I used to think that way. And I used to worry about that even with my work. Like, am I being paid to be a friend to them? Or what? Like, it was a weird, and then I started thinking again, the stadium thing, like they have a game that they're playing, and to get access to be a part of this, you pay to be a part of it. These communities and these masterminds, they're not just happening in the food court by Chick-fil-A that you just walk into at the mall. It doesn't.
And they do have fantastic grilled nuggets, but that's about as far as it goes.
The Chinese food where they're giving out the samples. But it's curated, and there's a lot of work that goes into. So I paid to be a part of a few of these, and it's interesting how it works. I paid to be a part of a mastermind, and at that mastermind, it was a live event, and it was really kind of the catalyst. I go there, and I don't know that many people, and there's about 100 people there, and there was one guy. So just picture this. I'm a sports photographer on my way out looking to get into the online space, right? Coaching, teaching, and writing books and getting a whole different world. And there's a guy behind me named Kyle, and he goes to talk, and he has this membership for parents that take better pictures of their kids. So it's like a $12 a month membership, and he teaches basic photography to moms so they can take better snapshots of their kids. And I'm like, And he's got a membership that's got $12 and he's got more than 1,000 people in it. I'm like, well, that's pretty cool. Like he does one call a week. So immediately I'm like, that's possible? Like what? Like if that's even a world? Like this is before these memberships became much more common. And I'm like, so he's making, okay, I'm doing the numbers. And plus he sells courses. He was in Donald Miller's book Story Brand because he worked with Donald and made over $100,000 in a weekend launch. And I'm like, what world is this? So I need to know this guy. And then I give my presentation about my sports photography career. And I was thinking about writing a photography book at that point. Didn't know what I was doing. I was learning. And I turned to him because talk about being bold and kind of taking action. I looked at him sitting right behind me and I said, I've got an idea. These are the first words I ever said to him. And he looked at me and he said, yes. And I sat back and I was like, you don't even know what I'm going to say. And he goes, go ahead. Tell me. And now there's like 3 or 4 people leaning in like, what is going on here? And I said, you and I should team up and do a course on how to take better sports photos of your kids. Because Kyle's not a sports photographer. I've shot Super Bowls and World Series, and I've done this for 20 years. All these parents either have or will have kids that are going to play sports. And they can take a portrait of their kids, but they can't take an action shot.
No.
And so he was like, that's exactly what I was thinking. Yes. So it turned out that Kyle knew I was going to this event, and he went because of me, even though we hadn't even met yet. And he went to it because he wanted to meet me because he was thinking this already. We met up the next month and we wrote out a course. And the following month we recorded it. And the crazy thing is the first day of that course launch, it made more money than I made in a year as a sports photographer. And it was like community. It was like curating. You're bringing people together that
with a like desire or a like interest or a like
passion,
challenge.
Passion, drive, also willing to invest in themselves. That's the difference. The amount of people that go, I couldn't spend any money on that stuff. Like, well, I don't take you really seriously because if you can't invest in yourself, if you can't spend money to get better, you're always going to be that one that's always kind of just really cheap, no matter what we do. Like the event,
we all know that person.
Right. Yeah. Right. But like Justin's event, you spend money for a ticket, you spend money for a hotel, you spend money for a flight or a drive, gas, food. It's not cheap to do it, but you leave there and you go hanging out those couple days and talking and making these relationships.
Totally worth it.
They will build things that create income far beyond what you'll ever spend. And that's why those people continue to advance. And the people that just send DMs and don't invest in themselves don't. So community is really in many ways curating a group of like-minded people that are on a path together.
Yep.
And that's what we try to create.
And through that, through that comes the freedom by design. How cool is that for like a full circle moment? Freedom isn't just time and money. It's community, it's choice, and it's designing life intentionally. How cool. It just all comes together.
It's funny because Elizabeth said to me one time, because like I said, I'm just being honest, like I get annoyed by people. I get annoyed by complaining. I get annoyed by small talk. And one time I was like, I just kind of wanted to be on my own. Like there was a group of people we'd hang around with. I'm like, it's just kind of downers. It's just, and she's like, you create a little fantasy land that you live in. That's what she said. And she said, I'm not saying that as an insult, but she's like, the people you hang around with are all doing these things. They're all, for the most part, driven and excited and positive and forward thinking. And every time you talk with them, there are all these ideas and challenges and accountabilities. She goes, that's not the way the rest of the world works. And
that's totally okay and why it works for you.
Exactly. And she knows it, but she wanted me like she's like, you're kind of in a little bubble that you created for yourself. I just want you to know that. I'm like, I know. And that's why the outside world becomes harder for me because I'm like, I love the conversations in here. I love the people in here. And I'm either attracting them right towards that, or I'm kind of repelling away because I love conversations, but bad conversations are painful for me. They just really are.
So how do, and I love that I'm just saying I'm in the echo chamber with you because I love a good silo filled with other people who like my silo.
Yeah.
How do we become part of that community? So how do we find you? How do we stay tuned into this? Get the membership freedom. I got it right. Information and how do we learn more about this idea of community and choice and intentional career design and community from you?
Yeah, I mean, our the website's mymembershipfreedom.com, and it's real simple. We have a quiz there that you can take. There's a membership quiz. But I'm all about, even with it, I'm all about connection. Meaning, I love when people reach out. I love one-to-one conversations. A lot of people are like, you want to get people into a funnel. I'm not a funnel person. I'm not looking to get somebody from the free thing to the $7 thing to there's like these things that are taught. I am all about crafting real relationships and connections and conversations and seeing what happens from there, because I don't just immediately offer up the membership. It's not a thing that I immediately want to just sell to everybody. I want to make sure there's a fit. I want to have a conversation. Also, I might know of a better place for you to go. There might be a better community for you to go. It's not all mine. It's not all, hey, how do I get you to buy my stuff? It's all like, hey, what are you looking to do? And there's a lot of times I'll talk to people and what we do is just not, they think they do, but it's not. They don't want to build it. Like, okay, check this out. So I do think getting plugged into a like-minded community is very important, but it's not, the more specific you make yours, it's not for everybody. So for me, it's for the people that want to build this, what we're talking about. They want to build we'll talk money. They want to build online recurring revenue to give them freedom. Because for us, Tim Ferriss wrote the 4-Hour Work Week. Is that bragging? It's just the truth. We've kind of built a 1-hour work week, for a very solid income
or
stream.
Or it feels like there's work happening, but it doesn't feel like it because it's designed around the way you want to live and your strengths.
I'm working a lot. What I mean by the 1-hour work week, there's only 1 hour a week for the most part that people expect me with my time.
Yeah.
Meaning,
so there's freedom of time, but there's still a time commitment there. And that's important. It's not, you don't get that idea of passive income.
It's not,
there had to be work that went into it at some point in time, which is a little bit of this community, but in general, it is this idea of tuning into a community that's going to support you in the terms that you've established. And that may be you, it may be others. That's a whole, I want to have a third, maybe fourth conversation about collaboration over competition, but we're wrapping here. Let's keep it on track.
Yeah. Well, because just the idea, the 1 hour is not, I only work one. I love to work. I love the work I do. I don't want to be committed for 20 hours a week for other people. So
you have freedom with the time. Absolutely.
Yeah. So to build, but I mean, I spent 4 hours writing my book before this call. I work a lot. But it's complete. I don't want to say complete, but it's on my terms. But that was built intentionally over more than a decade to create those levels.
So as we wind this down, I'm going to ask you for kind of one more piece of advice for those out there who are struggling. Somebody's sitting out there thinking, I want more freedom. I want more connection. I want it to feel like I only have an hour time commitment a week, but I don't know where to start. What's your advice? Where do they start?
That's a great question. It depends. I give you the lawyer answer, right? It depends. Where do you start? What I teach are 3 simple things. And I think the most complex thing you could do is to be simple. I really do. It's not that, for me, what I do on a daily basis is I create real connections, meaning building a network and having conversations with those people. I create relevant niche content to attract the type of person that I like to hang out with. And then I make offers. And within those offers is, a conversation about the unconference or about membership freedom or about coaching. And those offers only come when there's a genuine connection and often content that has built trust. Because a lot of people try to sell something without any trust. So that's what I would start with. It's not necessarily joining a community. Maybe it is. But if you want to be around like-minded people that are doing it, consider that. It was a catalyst for me to jump into those, especially when I was beginning. But the whole idea of if you want to build something, maybe build your own community. Those are the 3 things to do consistently, because you can create all the content you want, make connections. But if you never have or make offers, you're not going to have a viable business revenue wise.
And there's a like 12th conversation about idea versus an actual entrepreneurial endeavor that makes money.
Yeah.
It's the simplify message, I think, is an amazing, just foundational thing, because we are real good at overcomplicating things and go back to the analysis paralysis conversation. So I want to, as we wrap up, give everybody one last plug of where to find you. So what are your sites and your socials again?
It's mymembershipfreedom.com, or I'm on LinkedIn and I'm on Facebook. Those are the two main ones. And I can send you the links to those.
We'll drop them in the comments and we'll make sure they're in show notes. And I'm just going to tell you all, this guy's no joke, because the first time I reached out to him, within the next 24 hours, I got like 17 Facebook voice messages, which is
wasn't that many?
No, I think it was 3, but let's exaggerate a little and make it warranted. But like, it wasn't a funnel. It was like a, hey, how you doing? Excited to chat. Hey, I'm excited that you're coming. It was like legit. We were exchanging 1-minute phone calls with each other. And so practice what he preaches. Vincent Pugliese, everybody.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
I have loved this conversation. I want to have many, many more, which we will in person and recorded and streamed live. Y'all just are not going to be rid of the two of us. But as we sign off this week, I want to leave you all with a challenge. What is one simple area of your life where you can see yourself still following the script, following the societal norm? And what would it look like to ditch that and design your own path? One small societal norm you are sticking to that you could potentially ditch or question so that you can make a decision and not just accept the default. That's the challenge I'm going to leave all of you with, as we say, thank you, Vincent Pugliese, for joining us and for encouraging all of us to design the life we want and build the business or the career that is going to support it so that we can have a life of freedom and flexibility on our terms. It is my favorite thing to talk about, and I am so grateful for your time today. I'm Angie Callen, everybody, and this has been another incredible episode of No More Mondays. I appreciate you spending part of your week with me, kicking off your week with us. Here's to living and working authentically. I will see you next week for another episode of No More Mondays.